Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll.
I'm John Suarez.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about the Draconic Rage deck from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. And this is headed up by Vrondis, Rage of Ancients, as the commander. And I know right before we recorded, you had some choice comments about Vrondis there, John, if you want to talk about that.
The dragon barbarian, you mean dinosaur or land lizard. Dragons have flying. That's a thing. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, so maybe there's some character somewhere.
Yep,
I've literally never heard of a dragon without flying. I've never seen any movies of dragons without flying. There's not even like the little dragon that wanted to fly but couldn't because it was more wings. Literally, I've never seen a dragon without flying.
Isn't that the entire point of how to train your dragon?
I don't know. But he flies in the end. Toothless flies, right?
He does. Okay, so
this guy doesn't fly. Come on.
All right, so this is in D&D, there is a race that you can play that is Dragonborn, which is basically just a human version of a dragon. It's basically a half dragon, half human. And so this is a Dragonborn barbarian. Obviously, they couldn't put Dragonborn on the card type, so they just put dragon to keep it there.
They couldn't? So you're telling me this is the centaur or like a dragon version of a centaur?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it. Yeah. All right.
So this one's pretty sweet. Red green 5/4. It has an rage. Whenever Vrondis Rage of Ancients is dealt damage, you may create a 5/4 red and green dragon spirit creature token with when this creature deals damage, sacrifice it. And whenever you roll one or more dice, you may have Vrondis deal 1 damage to itself.
Yeah. To be clear, you make a 5/4 red and green dragonborn spirit creature token because that one doesn't have flying. It's a dragon and a spirit, Jeremy. Is it from Kamigawa? The Kamigawa dragons have flying. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Anyways, sorry, keep going.
Just like our other episodes of Upgrades, we are going to go through and we're going to pick out 10 cards that are under $10. Try and keep this kind of budget. Obviously, there's some really big, expensive, silly dragons that you could put in this and just go to town with, but we're going to try and keep it as you just pick this up off the shelf. You want to upgrade it. You have, 20, 30 more dollars that you want to spend on it. Maybe a little bit more, pick up some singles, throw them in there, see how it does. And the first one that we're going to go with is Arc Bond, which is appropriate enough from the Dragons of Tarkir block. This is from Fate Reforged. And it is an instant for 2 and a red that says choose target creature. Whenever that creature is dealt damage this turn, it deals that much damage to each other creature and each player. So very useful if you're going to be playing Vrondis, which wants to deal damage to itself. And you have a variety of other cards, and a couple of cards we're going to go over as well, that are going to deal damage to one creature or more creatures and stack everywhere else. So,
yeah, very, very powerful card. Has a dragon in the background that's flying. Just throw that out there.
Has 2 sets of wings, even
2. Yeah. So the next card, I like to think of this picture as a dragon has just flown through there and left, and that is Pyrohemia.
Burninated the countryside.
Burninated everybody. This is the Planar Chaos color shifted version of Pestilence. 2 colors and a red, or 2 colors, 2 red. Enchantment at the end of turn, if no creatures are in play, you do have to sacrifice it. But you can pay a red to deal 1 damage to each creature and each player. But with Vrondis, that is obnoxious. Very obnoxious. Yeah. Making 5/4s for 1 red is pretty good.
Yeah. Multiple 5/4s is super great.
And you get to control the board. It's pretty great.
So speaking of those 5/4s, because you have to sacrifice them after they do deal the damage, you have another option in Greater Good, which is also in, I believe, one of the other decks.
It's in the Aura of Courage deck, actually.
Or Aura of Courage deck, right? So you can just swap that out right into this deck if you want, if you've bought the set of 4, pretty easy. Or you can pick it up on its own. It's actually not very expensive. It's $3-ish right now.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
So it's an enchantment for 2 green that says sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. So really useful way to be able to draw deeper into your deck in red and green by just sacrificing those dragons and spirits that you've attacked with, dealt damage with, hopefully. They're 5/4s. The trigger goes on, just sacrifice it, draw your 5, discard your 3. Real
sweet.
simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very, very sweet.
Very
great,
sweet card.
Great use for those dragon spirits that are going to die anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Next card is a new one from Modern Horizons 2, and this is a goblin. The goblin shaman in Goblin. What is it at? How do we even say this? This is
a necromancer.
A necromancer. There you go. There.
A narcomancer.
It's an anarchist mancer, right? That's what they're trying to get at here. So the 2/2 for 2, red and green. And this, if you're familiar with the older like plane shift era where you had familiars, this is a familiar for green and red. So each spell you cast that's red or green costs 1 less to cast. In a deck full of dragons, flying dragons, I might add, they cost quite a bit. So this being able to basically make everything in your deck cost 1 less, pretty sweet. And a much better budget option than a medallion.
Yeah, we already have the ones that are specific to the dragons in the deck. So like the Dragon Speaker Shaman and the Dragon Lord's Servant. But this one helps you out with your non-dragon creatures. So if you're going to be playing your really big spells in this deck, the 6 and 7 mana spells, it really helps out with that. Just reducing them by just a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not just creatures. It's everything in your deck.
Yeah, it's everything in your deck.
Yeah.
So the next one is one that is another enchantment that's great with flying creatures, which is Dragon Tempest. Yeah. It's an enchantment for 1 and a red. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gains haste. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. So you kind of get a little bit of both worlds, even if your commander is not a flying dragon and it does not make flying dragons.
Yeah, I'm okay with this card with my commander because I don't need the flying if I get to make a bunch of spirit dragons that deal damage equal number of dragons I control. That's really sweet. So.
That just go pew pew.
Yeah. Let's see. Next card is a very, very popular card recently. You all may be very familiar with it due to the RC announcement the other day, and that is Hull Breacher. Or just Hull Breach. So,
just Hull Breach.
Just Hull Breach. Red and a green. This card is a classic Gruul staple. This card came out all the way back in Invasion Block. Red and a green, destroy an artifact, an enchantment, or both. This card cleans up enchantments and artifacts better than most cards in Magic. Very, very
it's
efficient.
a really, really efficient spell at 2 mana.
Yeah. Very cool.
I've played with one of these for forever, and I don't know that I'm going to get rid of it in the deck that I have it in. So, the next one, also another one that you could consider a staple, which is Chaos Warp, and it's 2 and a red. I think most people know what Chaos Warp does. Owner of target permanent shuffles it into the library and then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Not only can it get rid of pesky permanents on your opponent's board, but you could also just Chaos Warp one of your things, one of your small tokens that you've got, something like that, and see if you hit one of your dragons.
Yeah. If somebody's trying to get rid of one of your giant dragons, like you have a bunch of dragons in this deck, so rather than just let it sit there and go to waste, maybe you can shuffle and polymorph and get lucky. So.
Yeah.
The next card.
Always a fun, useful.
I love. I know. When I found this card when we were doing this, I was pretty excited about this. So.
I do love this card.
So, Vondra's Rage of the Ancients has the Enrage ability, but then it also has that other text at the bottom. Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, very clearly does not say a d20, d6, d12, any of that. You may have Vondra deal 1 to itself, which will make a 5/4. So, there is one black-bordered Magic card before Adventures in the Forgotten Realms that lets you roll a die, and that is Fractured Power Stone. This is just 2 mana, tap it, adds 1 mana to your mana pool, so it's essentially like a Mind Stone in that sense. And then you could also tap it to roll the planner die as a sorcery. You're allowed to roll the planner die in Commander, whether you're playing with Plane Chase or not. So you just get to roll this die and make a 5, and deal 1 to your commander and make a 5/4. Excellent mana rock for this deck.
At worst, it is a 2 mana rock that gives you 1.
Yep.
At best, it's going to give you another 5/4. Yep. So, when we were talking about this earlier, you were just, what is that one card? And because I have played Plane Chase Commander multiple times over the years, Fractured Power Stone. I've just got one sitting out in case somebody's like, hey, let's play some Plane Chase. Because you always just want that in there no matter what. So. Yeah. What are people doing here? The next one is one that's also really great. It's a dragon. It's colorless. It's your friend and mine, Steel Hulkite. flying 5/5 for 6, gets pay 2, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and pay X, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn, activate only once each turn. Really good way of just wiping the board of like some problem things. You just pay your 1 or 2, get rid of a lot of their rocks and a lot of their, small creatures and things like that. And just a really efficient creature. You can't go wrong with a Steel Hellkite, I don't think.
No. Excellent dragon. One of the best. And our last card is Sarkhan's Unsealing. Obviously, Sarkhan, very big fan of dragons. So it's an enchantment for 4 mana. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to any target, which is going to be the mode that triggers most of the time. Then it also has, if you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and each planeswalker they control. That's not going to be the one you trigger most of the time. Most of the time, it's going to be the 4, but that's still very good. Like, this is a pretty cheap. It's not quite like a Warstorm Surge, but it's a little mini version of that in this deck, right? So,
yeah, lots of your dragons are going to have 4, 5, and 6 in this deck, so it's going to hit very often.
Yeah,
there's only a few that have maybe 3 or less. Some of the shapeshifters and stuff like that. So as far as cards that we would take out of this deck, there's really only a few. I know that you had a few that you were particularly like kind of meh on. And I know that there's a couple that we've agreed before that are not super great cards in the first place in a lot of these decks. So the first one is one that we've seen before, and it's Heirloom Blade. It's just an equipment. It's nice because it can get you that extra card into your hand. But for the most part, it's just not really worth the amount of mana you're spending on it. Like the +3/+1 doesn't really do much in a dragon's deck. You're already playing really big creatures, so
yeah, exactly. And I don't want to put another dragon in my hand. If they put it in the play or something, we'd be talking. But it's just not an effect I need for sure. One of the other cards we took out was Return to Nature. Pretty good card overall, but I just think that Hull Breach is not strictly better. I don't want to say that, but a much better option. Obviously, it's not
instant
better,
speed,
but it's very good.
But it does.
But being able to hit 2 is better, in my opinion, than just choosing 1.
Ryle is another one. It's a 1 mana sorcery, deals 1 damage to target creature you control. That creature gains trample in a turn, draw a card. And that's fine for pinging your commander and giving it trample, but you've got other ways. Yeah, it's fine. Not great.
Yep. Let's see. One of the cards I took out of the deck when going through it was Decree of Savagery, which hurts because I love cycling so much. But again, we're talking about giant dragons, and I'm never going to cast this for 9, most likely, which is putting 4 +1/+1 counters on each creature I control. So most of the time, you're going to cycle it and give something +4/+4 counters. Yeah. It's fine. It's not a bad card. But there's just things you can do that are better.
Kind of in a similar vein, Anger, which is, pretty solid red card that you see in a lot of like aggressive decks, but it's okay. I mean, for the most part, it's going to be a 4/4 for 2 that you're going to have to either chump block with or try to get somebody to block. Because you're not going to be putting into your graveyard, through like discarding or cycling or something like that on a regular, not often. So it's just kind of
And we added Dragon Tempest.
Yeah, we got the Dragon Tempest that we're adding in, so that's already in there, or no, that we're adding in. So that helps with that part of it. So
yeah, the next card I cut is not a bad card by any means, and it's a good card in this deck. But it's one of those cards again where you kind of puts a target on you, and that's Savage Ventmaw. That card kind of indicates, hey, that you probably have like aggravated assault or something along that line in your deck, and that you immediately earn a threat. When it's really in this deck, it's just a really good dragon that's a 4/4 for 6 and adds a bunch of mana. But again, I don't like. I like to kind of play undercover and not draw any attention to me if I can, until they have.
And this one definitely screams I'm going to utilize this mana to make things real bad for everybody. So the last one is another just kind of expensive spell. That's Kindred Summons. It's part of the cycle of the Kindred cards. It's choose a creature type. Obviously, really good with dragons. Reveal cards from the top of your library and to reveal X of the chosen type, where X is the number of creature you control of that type. Put them into the battlefield, then shuffle the rest. But for 7 mana, it's okay. I think putting another like 3/4 dragons into play is super sweet. But I would rather just be doing something like, honestly, just like Fractured Power Stone. It's silly,
Exactly.
but it's just so much more fun.
And the cool thing is, yeah, this card is actually still, it has a pretty high secondary market value, right? Like, so you could actually trade this card for some of the cards you want to upgrade, because this is one of the more expensive cards on the deck. So it kind of gives you some value there when you're getting the pre-constructed deck, even if you don't want to play
The Kindred cycle is still going strong. And this is definitely not a cheap card. I think it's in the high teens still on a regular basis.
Yeah.
At the moment. So, but yeah, that's the Draconic Rage deck from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. If you're like me and have played D&D for as long as you've played Magic, or even a little longer, I know I'm pretty excited about this set. I'm going to be picking up a lot of the cards, a lot of the singles. I'm definitely going to be picking up all these commander decks, and you can too at starcitygames.com. They are available for pre-order now, and you can check that out. Make sure to also let us know what cards you would add to the decks in the comments below. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. For Jonathan Suarez, I'm Jeremy Knoll. Thanks for watching.